10 basic concepts to buy and hold stocks long term. Understanding the key aspects to buying stocks is not as complex as it may seem at first. Let's face it, there are a lot of words you may never have used before and sound pretentious. I believe some of this is intentional to keep people who do not have access to this information from wanting to take the time to learn about finance. I admit this was me before I decided to become relentless about learning this information. I feel it is my responsibility to provide a decent life and education to my family. The whole reason I chose to document this knowledge was to pass it on to my son Colton. Even though when he was born I was not educated on the topic of finance, I had the wherewithal to know that if I wanted to fulfill my responsibilities as the leader of my family, it was essential that I understand how money management really works. I was naturally curious about the secrets to generating income by using money instead of trading my time for money. I felt trapped by only having the option of going to a job to provide for my family. I intend to be as clear and concise about these concepts because they really are not hard to understand. I will still use the terminology that is used in finance, but I will do my best to make sure that these words become part of your vocabulary just as they have become part of mine. We are going to touch on each of the key concepts to analyzing a stock or business. In future talks, we will go into detail more about each of these concepts. But for the sake of not getting overloaded, we will keep it simple. The first key concept about analyzing a stock is that you are analyzing a business. There are various types of businesses and industries, from large superstores, massive corporations, to little local businesses. If you were to buy a stock or hypothetically a local HVAC company or an ice cream shop or a restaurant, you would analyze these businesses exactly the same. And when you buy a stock, you become part owner of that company just the same as your boss, who owns the company you currently work at. The second key concept is the company's financials. This is called fundamental analysis. If you were to buy a local business, you would want to buy one that generates a lot of money by using very little money to operate. This makes sense because you get to keep the money left over. Now, this gets broken down into a lot of different aspects such as balance sheets, cash flow, debt ratio, profitability, margins, return on equity, income statements, operating income, and gross profits. What you want all of these things to indicate is that the company makes a lot more money than it spends. It is a lot easier to get all of this information online about publicly traded stocks in the stock market than it is to get this information on a local business like a landscaping business or a tire shop. There are platforms that give you access to this information, and you can also find it with a quick Google search. We will get deeper into platforms that offer this information and brokerages in later discussions. Okay, let's talk about debt. This is a very important key concept. We don't want to buy companies that have it. Case closed. Next. Okay, before we move on, I will also say this. It is incredibly hard for a company with zero debt to go out of business if it were to hit a rough patch. If you paid for your house with 100% of the purchase price in cash, you don't have to pay a mortgage every month. It would be hard to lose that house unless you didn't pay the taxes, but taxes are a whole other topic we will reserve for another talk. So when analyzing a stock, we want to buy companies that have little to no debt. If a company can't pay its debts, it will go bankrupt. This will result in a drop in the stock price and a loss on your investment in the stock. The next thing we are looking for is a company with a strong moat. What is a moat? It means what it sounds like, but not in the literal sense. Can you imagine a moat around Walmart? How would you get into the parking lot with your car? Okay, all kidding aside, what we mean is we want to own companies that are so far ahead of their competition that it presents challenges for the competition to catch up to them. I think we can best illustrate this concept with an example of a company with a strong moat. At the time of writing this, Google dominates the search engine everyone uses. Google is one touch away on your phone from asking it whatever question you can imagine, and it delivers on its vast resources of information and content available on its platform to have instant direct access to its information. The saying is, Google it, right? It would take a lot of money and resources to scale a company to have large data centers and more information to offer than a Google search. And just about every business imaginable utilizes Google as a way to give people access to their services. For now, there isn't any other company that comes close to the size of Google or its ability to generate revenue in its industry compared to its competitors. TAM is an acronym for the total addressable market. This is referring to the size of total potential revenue the company would generate if 100% of the market interested in the product or services only bought from that company. Let's use cheeseburgers, for example. A lot of Americans love cheeseburgers. There are a lot of people who are interested in a cheeseburger when they get hungry. They are quick, easy to eat on the go, and delicious, and they don't break the bank. Now imagine how many people go to McDonald's when they think of a cheeseburger. I use this example because I know Colton is following me on this one. McDonald's gets a huge piece of the total addressable market, or TAM, when it comes to cheeseburger sales. This is very good for McDonald's, I'm sure you can agree. Warning: limit cheeseburger consumption to a few times a month. This is not a recommendation to now go get a cheeseburger at McDonald's. We still have a few things to cover before we can take a lunch break. One of the most important concepts is the management team. I like to ask myself a few obvious questions when assessing the capabilities of the people who run the company, such as, does the company have great management? Are they able and honest? What is their track record? Does the management team have a strong reputation for the pursuit of perfection and growing the business? Is the original founder still involved with the business? If you have worked for a few different businesses in your work history, I'm sure there have been a job or two that you may have thought the business was run by complete idiots. Well, when you are an investor, this opinion actually matters. If you think that the business is run by unmotivated and incapable people, then it's not a good idea to buy that company or stock. It's best that your morals and ideas align. Having confidence in the management team will make it an easy choice to buy more stock when the stock price does drop. Understanding what it is that the business actually does is crucial. If you can't explain to someone what the business does, don't buy it. You have to have some type of interest or prior knowledge about what the company does. If you like shoes, research companies in the shoe industry like Nike stock as a potential stock to buy, and then look at its competitors and see if you can find deeper value in those companies to determine which stock in the shoe industry you would want to own. If you like shoes, it will be really easy for you to keep attention on the business. If you use an Apple phone and Apple products, you might want to buy Apple stock because you are already paying attention to what Apple does and releases so you can stay up to date in its ecosystem. You can now start to make money with the stocks that interest you. It's not a good idea to invest in a biotech stock if you don't understand biotech. These concepts are pretty straightforward, I hope. This next concept is more mathematical than practical thought. Discounted cash flow analysis, or DCF, refers to a valuation method that estimates the value of an investment using its expected future cash flows. A DCF is primarily classified as fundamental analysis. Doing a discounted cash flow analysis, DCF will determine if the stock is currently undervalued or overvalued. DCF analysis attempts to determine the value of an investment today based on projections of how much money that investment will generate in the future. We want to buy businesses that are trading cheap relative to its cash flows. Now, before you think I can't do this complicated mathematical equation, there are calculators online that will provide all of the publicly traded companies' financials that will need and calculate them. For you, you can input your own discount percentage rate that you would like to use. The next concept I want to talk about would be considered to be more technical analysis than fundamental analysis. The simple moving averages are a moving average of the closing prices of a security over a specific range of days, calculated by adding up the closing prices from the specified amount of days and then dividing the result by the amount of days there. Are the 20-day, 50-day, 150-day, and 200-day moving averages. We will be using the 50-day and the 200-day average to manage the stocks in your long-term portfolio. The last concept to understand is called weighted dollar cost averaging. Let's go over how much you should spend on a stock at a time. Don't buy it all at once. It's never fun to overpay for something. Compare buying stocks and index funds to buying gas for your vehicle. Depending on the time of year and a whole list of other reasons, the price of gas fluctuates. Sometimes gas prices are high and you dread filling your tank. Other times prices are low and you feel happy to fill your tank. This would be like filling your tank and extra tanks when the gas is cheap like a hoarder. How do we replicate this when buying stocks? Over time, we consistently purchase a set dollar amount of a stock or index fund with the cash you save each month from your income, reserving a remaining portion of cash saved per month. Remember, time in the market beats timing the market. Each month, deploy 70% of the income to purchasing stocks and saving the remaining 30% as reserve cash. When the stock price is trading below the 50-day moving average, increase the set dollar amount or stock purchase by 10 to 15%. By utilizing your reserve cash. This strategy will lower the cost base over time and increase the return on capital, and also ensure you have capital to purchase stocks if there are sudden unforeseen drops in the price of the stock. In fact, just assume there will be 2 or 3 times the price of the stock drops substantially under the 200-day moving average after you started your position. These are your golden opportunities to get the same business at some of the cheapest prices you will purchase the stock at. Always stay in a position to buy stocks, especially when it's trading cheap. When you look at a stock chart, it has ups and downs. Say you were to buy the majority of your position of the stock in each one of those dips. I'm sure you can realize that this would substantially increase your return over the long term. That's the power of utilizing these simple moving averages. I told you these concepts are not hard to understand. To sum it up in the most simple and elegant way I have ever heard it explained, I will refer to a quote from a legend in the investment world, Charles T. Munger. We are trying to buy businesses with sustainable competitive advantages at a low or even fair price that is growing its earnings. I reserved one piece of personal information till the end for this specific part. You may not have understood everything you just heard the first time. It might take several times of going over this information till it really sinks in. Nothing good comes easy. I myself am dyslexic, and reading and writing have always been the hardest thing for me to do. When I was young, I couldn't ever imagine admitting out loud what I just told you about myself. It was the most embarrassing thing about myself. But somehow, some way, today, I have conquered something I didn't ever think I would do by writing this information that will hopefully be passed on to future generations of the Ream family. So I really believe if you give yourself enough time to learn this information, you can think your way through each one of these concepts, and they will become your own ways of using practical thought to analyze and buy and hold stocks in a portfolio. By doing this over a long period of time will create a snowball effect. The longer you do it and the more money you save per month, multiplied with the miracle of interest, will have a result that will give you the ability to provide for your family more than just trading time for money. Colton, do not shy away from the hard challenges in life. They lead to the happiest moments. That is living life. I promise you, you can do anything you set your mind to, and I love you.